She lost her daughter in an instant and tried to replace her with a chimpanzee. What began as grief turned into obsession and ended in blood. This is the chilling true story of love, denial, and the day it all went horribly wrong. Welcome to Deep Echoes, where the shadows speak and the truth hides in plain sight. If you crave the strange, the eerie, and the unexplained, you're in the right place. Don't forget to subscribe, because the deeper you go, the darker it gets. The silence in the house was a living thing, thick and suffocating. It pressed down on Linda Rayner like a physical weight, a constant reminder of the vibrant laughter that used to echo through these rooms, the pitter-patter of small feet on the hardwood floors. Now only the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall dared to break the oppressive quiet. It had been 5 years since Sarah, her only child, was taken. A drunk driver, a blind intersection, a life extinguished too soon. The void Sarah left was a black hole, sucking the color and joy out of everything. Linda found herself adrift, a ghost in her own life, until Max came along. He was a tiny ball of fur then, barely able to cling to her with his miniature hands. Max, the chimpanzee, a creature so unlike her daughter, yet in her grief-addled mind, he was a second chance, a fresh start. She brought him home, swaddled him in Sarah's old baby blankets, and swore to give him the life she couldn't give her daughter. From the beginning, Linda treated Max like a human child. He wore diapers, ate mashed bananas from a spoon, and slept in a crib next to her bed. As he grew, so did her delusion. She dressed him in overalls and t-shirts, taught him to use a fork and spoon, and even tried, with limited success, to potty train him. Max rode shotgun in her car, accompanied her on grocery runs, and even sat at the dinner table, gnawing on chicken bones with disconcerting gusto. Her friends and family tried to intervene, gently at first, then with increasing urgency. "Linda, this isn't right," her lifelong friend, Claire Benson, had said countless times, her brow furrowed with concern. "He's a wild animal. He needs to be with his own kind." But Linda wouldn't listen. Max was her son, her family. He filled the emptiness that threatened to consume her whole. She saw love in his dark, intelligent eyes, a connection that transcended species. Claire, ever the loyal friend, tried to understand. She saw the profound grief that fueled Linda's actions, the desperate attempt to fill the unfillable. So she offered to help. She'd come over to play with Max, to try and teach him simple commands, to offer Linda a semblance of normalcy. But as Max grew, normalcy became an increasingly distant memory. He was a powerful creature, a force of nature contained within the confines of their suburban home. He was 200 pounds of muscle and raw instinct, and Linda, blinded by love, refused to see the danger. He felt it in his bones, the primal urge that tugged at him from the depths of his being. The scent of the wind, the feel of the sun on his fur, the instinctive knowledge that he was meant for something more than this. The clothes felt constricting, the furniture alien, the human sounds grating. He was an echo of the wild trapped in a gilded cage. He loved Linda. He did. She was the source of his comfort, his provider, the only mother he had ever known. But there was a part of him that she couldn't touch, a part that yearned for the freedom of the forest, the camaraderie of his own kind. Sometimes he would sit by the window for hours, staring at the trees swaying in the breeze, his brow furrowed in concentration. He wouldn't blink, barely breathe, lost in a world that only he could see. In those moments, he wasn't Max the house pet. He was something else, something ancient and untamed. The red flags were there, subtle at first, then increasingly blatant. Max's playful nips turned into painful bites. His gentle tugging became aggressive shoves. He developed a possessiveness over Linda, growling at anyone who came too close. One afternoon, while Linda was on the phone, the mailman reached through the gate to deliver a package. Max, with a speed that belied his size, launched himself at the gate, teeth bared, a guttural roar erupting from his chest. The mailman stumbled backward, dropping the package and scrambling away in terror. Linda rushed outside, scolding Max, but the incident shook her. For the first time, a flicker of fear ignited in her heart. She tried to rationalize it. He was just being protective, she told herself. It was a one-time thing, but the unease lingered, a persistent hum beneath the surface of her denial. The mood swings were another cause for concern. One minute, Max would be his usual playful self, swinging from the chandelier and chattering excitedly. The next, he would be withdrawn and sullen, staring blankly into space, his eyes filled with a strange, unsettling intensity. Claire noticed it too. "Linda," she said one day, her voice tight with worry, "he's getting too strong. You can't control him anymore. You need to consider a sanctuary, a place where he can be with other chimpanzees, Linda recoiled, her eyes flashing with anger. "Don't say that," she snapped. "He's happy here. He's my son. I won't give him up." Claire sighed, her shoulders slumping. She knew she couldn't reason with Linda. Her grief had built a fortress around her heart, and Max was the only lifeline she clung to. The day it happened started like any other. The sun shone brightly, birds chirped merrily in the trees, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of honeysuckle. Claire came over in the afternoon, bringing with her a new toy for Max, a plush gorilla she had found at a local store. "He might like this," she said, handing the toy to Linda. "It might remind him of his own kind." Linda forced a smile. "He doesn't need reminding," she said, her voice tight. "He's happy being with us." Claire didn't argue. She knew it was pointless. She followed Linda into the living room, where Max was sitting on the couch, flipping through a magazine. He glanced up as they entered, his eyes narrowed in suspicion. Claire had recently gotten a new haircut, a shorter, more modern style that framed her face. She had also started wearing a new perfume, a floral scent that she thought was particularly appealing. It was a small attempt to reclaim her life after a recent divorce, a subtle signal that she was ready to move on. Perhaps it was the haircut. Perhaps it was the perfume. Perhaps it was the combination of both. Or perhaps it was something else entirely, something primal and unknowable that stirred within Max's blood. Whatever it was, something snapped. One moment, he was sitting calmly on the couch. The next, he was a blur of fur and rage. He launched himself at Claire, a guttural roar tearing from his throat. Linda screamed, her heart pounding in her chest, as she watched in horror as Max pinned Claire to the ground. He bit her face. Once, twice, 3 times, each bite tearing flesh, shattering bone. Claire screamed, a high-pitched, desperate sound that was quickly drowned out by Max's ferocious growls. Linda tried to pull him off, but he was too strong. His grip was like iron, his teeth like razors. She grabbed a heavy glass vase from the coffee table and slammed it against Max's head. He barely flinched. He turned his attention to Linda, his eyes burning with a chilling, animalistic fury. He lunged at her, knocking her to the ground. He straddled her, his weight crushing the air from her lungs. She looked into his eyes, and for the first time, she saw not love, not affection, but pure, unadulterated rage. He opened his mouth, revealing a horrifying display of teeth, and lunged for her throat. The world narrowed to a single, agonizing point. The taste of blood, the smell of fear, the feel of Max's hot breath on her neck. Linda closed her eyes, waiting for the inevitable. But it didn't come. A sudden, deafening blast echoed through the house. Max froze, his body tensing. He let out a high-pitched shriek, a sound of pain and confusion, and collapsed on top of Linda. She pushed him off and scrambled away, her body trembling, her mind reeling. She looked at Claire, lying motionless on the floor, her face a bloody mess. She looked at Max, his eyes glazed over, a pool of blood spreading beneath him. She stumbled to the phone, her fingers fumbling with the buttons. 911, she sobbed, her voice barely a whisper. "Please help me. He attacked us." The sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder with each passing second. Linda collapsed on the floor, her body racked with sobs, the weight of her delusion finally crashing down on her. The aftermath was a blur of flashing lights, shouting voices, and the sickening smell of antiseptic. Claire was rushed to the hospital, her condition critical. Max's body was taken away in a black bag, his life extinguished by a single bullet. The media descended like vultures, their cameras flashing, their microphones thrust in Linda's face. They called her a monster, a fool, a cautionary tale. They painted her as a delusional woman who had brought tragedy upon herself. Linda retreated into herself, shutting out the world. She refused to talk to anyone, refusing to answer their questions, refusing to acknowledge the enormity of what had happened. Claire survived, but she was forever scarred. Her face was disfigured, her spirit broken. She underwent multiple surgeries, but the damage was irreparable. She couldn't look in the mirror and see the woman she once was. Still, she never blamed Linda. She understood the depth of her grief, the desperate need to fill the void. She knew that Linda had acted out of love, however misguided. The legal battles were long and arduous. Linda was sued by Claire's family, by the mailman, by anyone who felt they had been wronged. She lost everything, her house, her savings, her reputation. In the end, she was left with nothing but the silence. Linda now lived in a small, sparsely furnished apartment on the outskirts of town. The walls were bare, the furniture worn and threadbare. The only decoration was a single photograph of Sarah, smiling radiantly, her eyes sparkling with life. She spent her days staring out the window, watching the world go by. Children played in the park across the street, their laughter echoing in the distance. She would watch them for hours, her heart aching with a longing she knew she could never fulfill. At night, she would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind haunted by images of Max. His playful antics, his loving gaze, his sudden, terrifying rage. She would replay the events of that fateful day over and over in her mind, searching for some clue, some explanation, some way to undo what had happened. She never found it. She would often wander into Sarah's old room, now stripped bare, and sit on the floor, surrounded by the ghosts of her past. She would pick up a tattered teddy bear, a faded photograph, a worn-out book, and weep. She kept one thing from Max, a worn, stuffed gorilla. It sat on a shelf gathering dust. She would occasionally pick it up, hold it close, and imagine Max cuddling it, finding solace in its familiar shape. Sometimes she would walk to the local park, where a swing set stood empty, its metal frame gleaming in the sun. It was the same swing set that Sarah used to play on, the same swing set that Max had occasionally pushed, his powerful arms sending her soaring through the air. She would sit on one of the swings, gently swaying back and forth, her eyes fixed on the horizon. She wondered if Sarah was watching her, if she understood why she had done what she had done. She wondered if Max was in some kind of chimpanzee heaven, swinging from the trees, surrounded by his own kind. She knew she would never truly know. She was left with the silence, the memories, and the crushing weight of her own mistakes. In the twilight, as the shadows lengthened and the air grew cool, she would return to her empty apartment. The image of the empty swing set burned into her mind. She would stare at the empty space where Max's bed used to be and wonder if she had ever truly known him. If he was ever truly hers. Had she loved him too much? Had she loved him in the wrong way? Had she tried to force him to be something he was not? The questions swirled in her mind, unanswered, unanswerable, lost in the silence of a house haunted by the ghosts of love and loss. And in the depths of her despair, she finally understood the terrible truth, that the wild can never be tamed and that the price of trying can be devastating beyond measure. The jungle had always been in Max, and in her desperate attempt to deny it, she had lost everything.